Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7 of the May 2017 estate sale finds. And this is going to encompass the first part of the load of stuff that I hauled on my second trip to this estate. And on the second trip, I actually, there was a lot of things that I ended up picking up that I had passed on the first time around because I wasn't that overly excited about them. And then I just realized that as we started bundling things, um, I started to realize that the prices were dropping, and it was the time to buy. And it was kind of funny because I'd get a pile going, and we'd start working on going back and forth, and he kept pushing for that little bit more money out of me. And so to try and make the deal work, I'd throw a couple more items in the pile, and then he'd push for more money, and then we kind of went back and forth like that until before either one of us knew what was happening. I was buying a big pile of stuff, and that was quite the haul. So without further ado, let's get into it. Because I kind of ran out of time on my first trip out, on this trip I got out there earlier, and I brought a strong flashlight and did some more digging and did some more moving of things to get behind some stuff, and was able to unearth some things that I hadn't even seen on the first trip. And one of those items was this metal box right here, which caught my eye. And when I first saw it, I actually thought it was an old electrical timer, the kind that you set the little tabs on to work lights or something like that. But then I noticed it's got the Federal label on it. Federal Products Corporation of Providence, Rhode Island. So I'm like, that's interesting. What do we got going there? Well, I quickly realized what this was because I had already had a chance to research this Federal stand that I picked, and you guys just probably recently watched episode 6. You saw this stand was one of the last items that I ended up getting on that pick. I never saw this box. When I got home, did some research on this stand, realized that this stand was part of an electronic comparator or something like that. And lo and behold, what do I find? Look at this antique. Look at this thing. Talk about a blast from the past. So what's in here is an early electronic measuring device. This actually was calibrated. Believe it or not, this was calibrated in 1992, even though looking at this unit to me looks a lot older than that. But apparently somewhere they continue to use it. So I'm not quite sure. This, I think, is a recessed hole with a little trim screw down inside there. I don't think that's anything broken off there. But this is called the Electroprobe Amplifier by Federal. We got off, battery set, long range, and short range. And then there's a 0. Okay. And this probe, okay, with this funky moldy ass plug, all right, actually plugs into this funky 6 flat pronged front part here. And this, which is a Federal Electroprobe gauge head, model FHE-100, serial 1992. This is somehow supposed to mount to this arm, so I think we're missing something here. Okay, there's probably something that this screwed onto. I think the way this works is when the probe touches what you're measuring, then you're going to start to get a little bit of a reading. So this thing just barely moves, and I guess this tiny bit of movement will
correspond to a movement here. Now, I'm going to stop here on this thing because I'm probably going to have to just do a separate episode on where I play around with this and see if I can actually get this to work at all, because it's going to need some attention more than likely. Inside here, there's probably some sort of a battery pack from hell that may or may not have either been removed. I'm hoping it was removed and that would save this from being damaged. But it's a neat little piece of history. I didn't pay hardly anything for it because I hold out very little hope that this thing's going to even work at all. So I just thought you guys might get a kick out of it, that I actually was able to find what I believe is the original unit that went with this setup here. So next up is another group of stands. Can't stand ya. I've had all I could stands and I can't stands no more. First trip out, I picked a bunch of stands and we've gone through those and there were some real beauties in there. And second trip out, I decided to basically take what was left for the stands because I knew I was going to get them for very cheap money, and I did. And there are a couple of shining examples in here, and then there's a couple of, well, not so shining example. All right, so let's start with this one here. We got the surface rust. It's kind of in rough shape, and I don't know whether or not I didn't notice this or not, or if this actually happened. I think this is old, this crack. So this must have been on here and I didn't notice it. At first I thought that something fell over on it in the truck and it cracked, but now that I look at it, I'm convinced that this is an old crack. And the funny thing is, even with that crack there, this is still a serviceable stand. So it's got a cast iron base. Originally it probably had, on the plate here, originally it probably had something because there's a couple of little rivets there like for a sign or something. On the back side, there is a casting number, 106-10 by the looks of it. That's the only thing I can find on this stand to possibly identify it. So even though this one has got this crack and everything, it does have a Brown and Sharp indicator on it, and it's kind of a neat one. It's got the two dials there, the dial and the sub dial. So that's actually not a bad little indicator. So it was worth grabbing it just for that alone. And then I actually ended up, there was two of them there, so I grabbed this one also. So this one doesn't have didn't have an indicator on it. Believe it or not, there's a calibration sticker on this one. This is probably, well, this one, I don't know if under there, maybe if there is a casting number on this one. I mean, it's virtually identical to the other one. Yeah, I don't see anything on this anywhere to identify the manufacturer of this thing. Son of a gun, I just realized what this is. This metal disc right here with this piece on it, this is a back from an indicator. There's the four holes that would have held it onto an indicator. I think this is a back from an indicator. They stole the back from an indicator, drilled two holes in it so that they could fasten it to this bracket. So this bracket must have been designed, to mount, have something else mounted to it, completely different maybe. And they turned it into an, and that's kind of funky there, huh? Yeah, and that's what they did on this one too. It's the same thing. So what we're looking at, here's the back of the indicator, and then what they did was they had another back of an indicator, and they put the two indicator backs back to back. That's kind of crazy. All right, let's get those out of the way. Enough said about those. So this next indicator is kind of a sweet one. This one, it's marked up here, Brunswick Instruments, and again, this is, I think, a comparator indicator base, and this may end up being another one of these ultra expensive ones to buy new. This one says Brunswick Instrument, Division of XL Engineering Corp., Niles, Illinois, and there's a phone number. This is probably a ceramic anvil or flat. This has, on the arm here, it has two different size holes for an indicator. And then, of course, you get the traditional good old, well, it looks like maybe the knob is, I think there might have been a knob on here originally to loosen this clamp. But what's really cool about this one is this area right here, okay, with this S-shaped slot. And what you've got is you've got a thin plate here and a thin plate here, and you've got this fine adjustment screw, which gives you a really tight, precise adjustment. And this whole arrangement here has a very specific name, and I can't for the life of me remember it, but it turns out Tom Lipton on Ox Tool just recently did a whole spiel about comparators and ultra high precision hoojumadiggies and stuff like that. And he actually came up with the $20 word, or it was more like a $50 set of words that describe what this is called. And it's not a bilabial fricative, it's something else. But anyways, you know, through various different arrangements here, you can make these very expensive. And the last stand is this one. It's got an indicator on it, which is a button back indicator. Okay, it's a Federal, so this indicator is really not worth much, and especially in the condition it's in. But the base intrigued me because, well, it's got this coating on it, which I can't figure out whether or not this is some sort of like a Cosmoline coating or something they put on there, maybe after this was, I don't know, calibrated, or what the deal is here. But I could just see enough of the inside here, and it got me to thinking, boy, that looks like it's pretty precision made. It almost looks, you know, this reminds me of a bench block, like a Starrett or a Brown and Sharp bench block. I'm going to peel this. Well, do I want to peel this off? I'm probably better off leaving the shmoo on there. See, that's got a really, like, almost lapped, polished base, and that's what they're probably protecting with this shmoo. And I don't know who makes this, and I'm probably not going to be able to find out without peeling all this stuff off. But it's an interesting little little indicator base. This is an item that I saw on the first trip out, and when I first saw what it was, I thought, oh, that's neat, and then I quickly said, oh, gee, you know, that's not worth doing anything with. And then, since it was still there on my second trip out, I threw it in because I knew I was going to pay only like $5 for it. But this is a Precision Measuring Tools, the Van Kuren Company, K-E-U-R-E-N Company of Watertown, Massachusetts. And what this is some sort of precision gauge block set. And the reason why, it's even had this little placard here, Van Kuren Company. The reason why I passed on this initially was because I had mentioned how unfortunate it was that this surface rust on here. And if these are really, really supposed to be precision gauges, then it's a damn shame that there's rust on here. Now, the funny thing is, I think maybe these could probably be lapped or cleaned up. And then there's a slot cut in them, and there's an adjustment screw. So I guess these could be recalibrated if somebody wanted to. Some of them are still wrapped in the wrappers, and even those have a little tiny spots here and there of rust damage, unfortunately, and it doesn't appear complete. There appears to be some stuff missing, so these aren't adjustable. All right, so I don't know what to make of this. This is probably going to be just a junk. There's one of these, which I have now learned that this is what's called an optical flat. Actually, this one actually says optical flat on it. So the first George Scheer gauge block set that I opened up had one of these, and I had no idea what it was. The second George Scheer gauge block, Scheer Tomiko gauge block set that I opened up had one of these, and the spot that it was in the box had a little label saying that it was an optical flat. And now this one actually says optical flat. And it's kind of funny how things work out, because lo and behold, Tom Lipton, once again, just recently did something on optical flats and explaining how you use a is it monochromatic light, I think he said, light source. I don't remember exactly, but there's a whole deal there where you put this down on a flat surface and you shine a monochromatic light through it, and it will make actually bands, and depending on how the bands are spaced or curved or something like that, it actually gives you an indication as to the flatness of the surface that it's on. This one has got some pretty funky looking wear or something in the center there. I don't think, yeah, I can't imagine. Oh, here's one. Oh, here's a nice one. This one's in much better shape. So I don't know. I guess that's, like I said, maybe we'll throw this online and start it with a really low opening bid and see if anybody wants to do something with it. All right, so this is going to be the end of episode 7, and stay tuned for episode 8.